We are here and we are strong. Let's be counted as we move on. Make a difference, change lives as we tell our different stories. We are capable, beautiful. We are born to do great things. We're unstoppable, incredible, 'cause we're differently abled, differently.
Hello there and a warm welcome on Able Differently. This is where we always take charge. Today we have insightful stories lined up for you, and it is our hope that you'll learn a thing or two by the end of the program. I'm your host, Jane Theory. Karibu sana.
'Cause we're differently abled, differently.
The 6th of October is always marked as World Cerebral Palsy Day. Here in Kenya, Cerebral Palsy Society of Kenya has held hands and worked with children with cerebral palsy and their caregivers in a very long time. We visited their center in Donholm and compiled the following report. Take a look.
Cerebral palsy is a group of disorders that affect movements in muscle tone or posture. It's caused by damage that occurs to the immature brain as it develops, most often before birth. The Cerebral Palsy Society of Kenya, CPSK, is an organization that has been on the front line in creating awareness about cerebral palsy.
Cerebral Palsy Society of Kenya, commonly known as CPSK, was started by a group of 10 parents in 1994. These parents were in their need of support, getting therapy for their children, and it started as like a small support group. Eventually it grew, and as the numbers grew, it was registered in 1996 as a society. Thereafter, we started with a small clinic on Jogoo Road where we offered therapy services.
It is aimed at the betterment of children and persons suffering from cerebral palsy.
Nilikuwa na shida vile nilimpata, akakuwa na hiyo shida ya CP. After 6 months ndio alifanyiwa test, akasemekana anapaswa kuanza therapy. Kutoka huo wakati alianza therapy na 7 months hapa CPSK kutoka 2015. But sometimes inafika mahali huwezi muleta therapy juu anahitaji vitu mingi, anahitaji dawa, anahitaji vitu kama hizo mafuta za therapy, ndio means fair kufika huko. Saa zingine kama sina hiyo uwezo, saa zingine huwa sikuji.
Disabilities are always strenuous to the caregivers. As a result, CPSK offers mentorship and training to the parents as a way of employment.
The psychosocial support, and the psychosocial support is where a parent is embraced and they are empowered on different skills. And then also, even as we offer therapy services, the parent is taught basic therapy skills, because the child will be here just twice a week. But you know, a parent spends 24 hours a day with the child. So once we empower this parent, they will play a bigger role than the therapist. So they're given assignments. When you get home, do this, try this. Then when they come the next time, they come with their report. Yes.
Aside from therapies, the organization also offers a variety of programs that are beneficial to the community.
We've been having programs in psychosocial counseling whereby we bring the parents and we train them on basic counseling skills, and that's community-based, whereby after we train them, they're able also to help the parents. First of all, they have what he calls, we try to help them to understand themselves. what we call self-awareness and the basic skills, and through that they are able to also help other parents who are in denial or those who are facing those emotional and psychological problems. So it is a program that is running very well, although this time of COVID-19 is a challenge. Though we find that is one of the projects that should really continue.
Cerebral Palsy Society of Kenya therefore links its successes to the partners and sponsors who have worked with them through the journey to advocacy and inclusion for persons living with cerebral palsy.
We have had partners who have worked with us, their partners and their friends. We have KCDF, which has worked with us. We have Cheshire a Disability. We have Minet Kenya, and very many other partners who have worked with us, who are standing behind us to see that our programs run. Yes.
The government's efforts on matters disability is also something that the organization recognizes.
The government has supported us, but the other challenge we have is that our children cannot articulate for themselves. They have to be represented. So that one brings a problem because all the other challenges, most, I'd rather say most, not all, people go and they articulate for themselves. They are able to go and address and hold a press conference and say, here we are, and this is what we are going through. But for our children, we have to do it for ourselves. But what I can say is that the government has been helpful. We have been approaching them, and I can say that the future is bright.
Although hiccups may arise along the way, solutions will always be found.
Children are growing, and the parents are getting older. So what happens? So that's why this year we had planned to have our annual charity walk, and part of the proceeds was to buy a piece of land whereby we would build a center and we would accommodate the children there. It's supposed to be a boarding facility because, you know, parents are aging. There'll come a time when this parent will not be able to take care of the child. And so what happens to the child? There'll come a time this parent, maybe the parent is working, and they need to go for a refresher course or something. What happens? They can come, leave their children on short-term basis there, go do what they want to do, and they come back for their child. So that is one of the challenges we are foreseeing, one which needs to be arrested soon and very fast. Yes.
There are a number of future projects that Cerebral Palsy Society of Kenya has in store.
We are planning actually from this month to be going to homes, to bring this project to homes whereby we can help the learners especially to move forward because they are stagnant. We are doing the same for the therapy at the same time and other programs. It's something we want to extend and trying to do it now at home because now the new normal has come with its different demands and challenges. So we are trying now to take our services back to the community.
Please wait for more campaign on cerebral palsy. We want everybody to know what cerebral palsy is. Yes.
'Cause we're differently abled, differently.
Let's take a short break and we'll be right back with more.
'Cause we're differently abled, differently.
Words used to describe the young, beautiful Magdalene Chesoli, who suffered a congenital limb anomaly that was realized at birth.
I was born with one leg, so my situation is congenital, basically. I was born in Kitale, partly raised there, and after I was born, my parents had to look for alternative ways of how I was going to walk, because being a child who is born with a physical challenge was hard for them because they didn't know how my movement was going to be.
For accessibility, her parents bought her a crutch which she used up to primary school level.
So they went to one of the shops, bought for me a very long crutch, one long crutch. So that is what I used to walk with the whole of my primary school. And I would say my childhood was fun. It was nice. Being a playful child, there were those neighbors or friends who were a bit worried. They felt like maybe I would fall. But for me, I didn't see that as an issue. So I continued using the leg until I cleared my class 8.
A new beginning would await her as she embarked on the high school journey, thanks to the advice from her school principal.
My mother had to take me to a special school. It's in Kisumu. It's called Joyland Special Secondary School. And the principal who was there by then is the one who talked to my mom, I think after seeing my condition, talked to her, told her that your daughter can get a better leg and you don't have to pay a single dime. My mom was worried a bit because growing up during my primary life, there were people who had given my mom the same option of me getting a leg, but they would take advantage of my challenge. And she was a bit hesitant, but after I think a few conversations with the principal by then, Mr. Otieno, she agreed.
Heeding to her principal's advice, she set out to Nairobi where she was fitted with a new limb that changed her life for the better.
I was brought to Nairobi. It's not the school which funded my coming to Nairobi basically. There are these Indian families. That particular family was called the Patel, and they're the ones who organized for my accommodation, my transport from Kisumu to Nairobi. Then I came. They did some measurements here at their office. After them doing the measurements, they gave me a new limb. And since then, I would say the rest is history, and I'm really glad. I'm really glad because it's brought a lot of change into my life.
To better explain how the prosthetics are fit to the amputees, Just Mokimori, an assistant workshop manager at the Jaipur Foot Trust, explains.
So this shell, you have to do fitting to the patient. It comes out something like this, which you fit on the patient first. And now, the final process is now when you come and fix a belt and a foot. So the foot, we get the size as per, they come in different sizes. So the size you give is as per the other side. If it's a person who is amputated both limbs, you can determine the size of the foot you want to use. Yeah, so you can put a bigger foot or a smaller foot. But definitely, for a bilateral patient, we put a slightly less foot, less the number, the size. Because the bigger the foot size, the more heavy it is. So at least you can determine. Yeah.
The new prosthetic limb provided Magdalene with an opportunity to be productive in school activities.
With the crutch, I would say I used to strain a lot. And basically my armpits and the lower part of my left limb, most of my clothes would get torn. And as much as I would move, carry things, do my own stuff, it was really hard, especially my armpits. They had even darkened. But with the artificial limb, the only challenge I've faced so far is walking for long distances. That is the only challenge. But these other things I'm able to do on my own without any assistance, without any help. Like I'm just okay. In fact, anyone who doesn't know me might not realize that I have a physical challenge.
Support from her loved ones and self-acceptance were some of the things that motivated her to keep going.
It wasn't easy, in fact, because you would question yourself, you will question God. You'd even ask your family members, why am I the only person who is physically challenged? What is wrong with me? Didn't God love me? But one thing I'm grateful for is a very supportive family. In fact, they sat me down, reminded me of how special I am, and they made me appreciate myself. Now, the first thing I've learned is loving myself first. you know, when you love yourself, you'll be able to reciprocate the same to someone else.
The amount of difficulties she has encountered as a person with disability is what makes her push for sensitization by the government on persons with disabilities.
I think the government is doing what it has to do, but I feel like they're not doing enough. Personally, I've had 2 experiences that I feel if the government would do something about it, it would be of great help in terms of creating awareness. I know there are these companies who are creating awareness about the disability rights, the Disability Act, but I feel like the sensitization is not enough. And if the government could work with the county commissioners, it could work with chiefs, or even the public in large, just to enlighten them, because I know there are not so many people who know about the disability rights or even the disability acts.
The university graduate, who is also a lover of fashion, speaks about her projects that she has been able to work on and her future plans. While explaining how she has been conducting herself during this corona season, these are her final recommendations to the society at large.
Me, I also had to challenge myself. I sat myself down, had a committee with myself, said, what can I do during this particular pandemic? And because of my positive mindset, I have been able to achieve a lot. Basically, I'm not working from home. So what I've been doing is I've been exercising, something I didn't know I could do. I can do planks now, confidently. Apart from that, I am learning a new programming language called Python. My advice would be, especially to the family members, if you have a sibling, a relative, or let me just say a sibling, who is, it could be visually impaired, physically challenged, it could be any other form of disability. Learn to accept them the way they are and talk to them, encourage them, tell them how worthy they are, what they can contribute to the world as individuals. And you as a person with disability, if you get an opportunity, try to build your self-esteem, try to build yourself as a person. I know it's not easy, it's not. But you see, if you don't do it for yourself, nobody else will do for you.
'Cause we're differently abled, differently.
Back in the day when polio was a threat to many children, Cleaver Aitoni was only 2 years of age, and unexpectedly he contracted the dreaded condition.
Actually, according to my parents, is that I was a very active boy. And I was very active and running around and very agile in very many ways. And it just came that I was sick. And through that sickness, to the hospital, then polio was diagnosed. Then the hospital decided to do what they could do.
He was fortunate enough to have parents and family that embraced him regardless of his condition, preferring that he went to integrated schools in his entire school life.
And my parents were positive. They took me to the call of integrated school. I didn't go to any special school. And that's how I grew up very positively. I grew up very positively, playing with my age mates, running around. When I'm not in the field, I'm the coach.
Although he had few encounters of discrimination, he was always ready to stand up for himself.
Even in school, where I went to school, it was very okay. They took me like any other of them. We would play together, do everything together. But with very little discrimination, which I would see, but I would always fight them.
Discrimination happens a lot at the point of interviews and hiring, especially when the candidate turns out to be a person with disability. Unfortunately, Cleaver also became a victim of discrimination while seeking employment in various places.
I've had such cases where I think I've been discriminated because I've done a lot of interviews. And normally when I want to go for an interview, I normally prepare myself well. And when I'm called for an interview, I always realize that I either have all the qualifications required or I'm even overqualified. There are places where I've done interviews and I know very well, I've done very well, and nobody considered me. And for your information is that all these places I've worked, I know that I've worked in those places and I was recruited on merit, where I've done an interview and become number one. I know all the places I've worked. When I look back, because I'm in HR, I always realize I was number one. So there's nothing like any favor which has been done to me because of my disability.
Despite the challenges he faces, Cleaver is still determined to secure a much better opportunity in government. He urges persons with disabilities to remain focused and to always be a step ahead of the rest while applying for jobs.
What I know is that even persons with disability have a problem with themselves. Majority of them lack self-esteem. And if you lack self-esteem, you will go nowhere. If you want something and you are persons with disability, go out there and let people see you trying to get this opportunity. When they see you try to get this opportunity, you will be given an opportunity to show your case. And I believe if you are given an opportunity to show your case, please ensure that you are the best among the crowd, and we will always get these jobs. I want to encourage my fellow persons with disability to be positive, go out there and look for these opportunities. These opportunities are available, and right now employers are starting to understand and to know what disability mainstreaming is all about, and they are willing to consider you for those opportunities which are available.
Although he applauds the government for the great job they are doing for persons with disabilities, especially during this period of COVID-19, he also challenged the government to up its game in other areas.
I believe that as much as the government has done much, but there are gaps. And these gaps is the inclusion of persons with disability in their programs. When we started the briefing on COVID-19, there was no interpreter, and the government decided to bring one on board. That was a plus on the government side. In that committee, I have not seen a person with a disability. I believe somebody with a disability should be in that committee. We have so many doctors with a disability who can be incorporated in such committees to advise on challenges persons with a disability are going through. There are many challenges which we are going through with the COVID-19. One of the challenges which is very eminent is communication, particularly for that category of deaf-dumb. If you look at it, these people use purely sign language, and with the mask everywhere. And some of them who have become maybe dumb when they are already adults depend on the lips. They study the lips as you talk. They can interpret what you are talking about. And with the mask now, they are not able to see your limbs. So it means that communication barrier is evident. That's one. Two, mobility. Mobility is a key challenge. Why do I say so? We do a lot of support, particularly where there is something like lift, where there is something like stairs. There is a lot of support which we actually touch. And if you look at the virus, it is something which is transmitted through airborne, where when you are talking and then it gets to the wall and you touch that wall, you are likely to be infected. So look at that kind of scenario. It means that persons with disability are at higher risk than any other person. And what have we done to ensure that we control that or we prevent that? Those are the issues we should be discussing. Because as much as there is language barrier, there is also risk of getting contaminated. And even safety and security of these people, particularly in the evening when there is curfew. They are likely to be injured or to be involved in an accident, and this is a problem. So there are a bit of challenges persons with a disability are facing. And economically, majority of these people are people who depend on small-scale businesses. And with the coronavirus, all these businesses were affected. Now, it means that these people need a lot of support during this particular moment. I'm very happy that the government has done their bit. At least there are some small cash they have transferred to these people during this period, which is very, very encouraging. But that is not enough. They always supplement with what they do. So those are kind of challenges we are facing. Again, if you look at it critically, even schools, we are talking of opening up schools. What measures have we put in place to cater for these persons with disability? With what I've said of mobility, touchy, and the communication, I assume now they go back to school. We need these people to have all where they can get running waters to wash their hands every now and again, sanitizing their hands every now and again. They also have people who support them. So this social distancing is another problem. Because, for example, if you have a blind person who is depending on her AD, that is a key problem. So how are we going to go forward if we are to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 among persons with disability?
Because we're differently abled, differently.
Let's take a look at the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability.
Article 6 of the UN Convention states that state parties recognize that women and girls with disabilities are subject to multiple discrimination, and in this regard shall take measures to ensure the full and equal enjoyment by them of all human rights and fundamental freedoms.
On today's etiquette, we caution about staring at caregivers for children with cerebral palsy. What we should understand is that mobility is a challenge in itself for children who have cerebral palsy, and most times they need to be ferried around by these caregivers no matter how old they are. So when you end up staring at these caregivers, it might cause a discomfort and end up irritating them. That's all the time we had for you today. See you again next week, same time. I'm your host, Jane Theory. Kwaherini.